Today was the last filming day of FreenBecky together, and possibly, this was their last series as a duo. Today marked the completion of filming for the entire 4 Elements lineup, and in this moment it feels especially clear that this is not just the end of a large project, but the closing of FreenBecky's story within it, because throughout all these months their storyline remained one of the most noticeable, emotionally intense, and important parts of the whole project, and now it has reached its final point. Not sometime in the future, but right now, on this very day when their last scenes together were filmed. Today was Freen's final filming day for the Air, shooting block Q28, and this matters not only because it marks the end of her work, but because this is where her key scenes with Becky were completed, the very scenes everything had been building toward for nearly 9 months, starting from the earliest stages when the story was only beginning to take shape, when the characters still existed mostly on paper, when their dynamic was just forming, and leading up to this moment where everything has become complete, where every emotion feels placed exactly where it should be, and every interaction feels natural and deeply lived in. It has been a long journey, with periods of waiting and sudden bursts of intense work, especially at the beginning of this year when January, February, and March became the most critical months, when the most complex and important scenes were filmed, and it was during this time that their on-screen dynamic evolved the most, becoming calmer, more confident, more precise, as any sense of stiffness disappeared and what remained was a clear understanding of each other in every scene, where sometimes a single look or a small movement was enough to make everything work. The Air is the final part of the 4 Elements anthology, a project originally designed as one complete story made of 4 different lines, and now that vision is almost fully realized as the filming of the entire lineup comes to an end. And while the official final filming day for the whole anthology is still ahead, for FreenBecky that ending has already happened, because their shared scenes are finished, and that makes today their personal final point within this entire story, the moment after which there will be no return to these roles and this dynamic. And this is where one important detail becomes clear, because throughout the entire process their scenes together never felt like isolated moments, but like one continuous line, where each new day added something to what already existed, strengthening the connection between their characters, making it more convincing and more layered, and that is why now it feels like the end of a whole chapter rather than just separate scenes. The story of the Air is built on tension, constant danger, and uncertainty, where Freen plays a police officer assigned to protect a princess portrayed by Becky, and at first their interaction is strictly defined by duty and responsibility, but everything changes after an assassination attempt, when the situation falls apart and they are forced into circumstances where they must rely on each other not because they are told to, but because they have no other choice, and it is within these conditions that their connection begins to form, slowly moving beyond professional boundaries and becoming something far more personal and meaningful. This relationship develops through details, through moments that are not always spoken out loud but are felt through actions, reactions, and the way they respond to each other, which is exactly why it feels so real and so strong. But there is another layer that makes this even more powerful, because over time it became more and more noticeable how natural and effortless their interaction in front of the camera became, how there was no longer any need to prove anything, because everything simply worked, and those are the moments that create a kind of chemistry that cannot be forced or imitated. The last months of filming were especially intense, with the main production block happening at the beginning of the year, when the work barely paused, when scenes required full concentration, when they had to deal with physical demands while also delivering emotionally heavy performances, and in those moments it becomes especially clear how important mutual support is, because without it is almost impossible to sustain that level of work, and that is why even under pressure their dynamic remains stable, calm, and grounded. And this leads to a feeling that is difficult to ignore, because when a process lasts this long and goes through so many stages, it begins to feel permanent, as if it will continue indefinitely, but in reality every story has a point where it ends, and that point usually arrives quietly, without big announcements, simply on the day when the last scene is filmed, and for FreenBecky, that day is today, because this is the last time they performed these roles together, the last time they completed this shared line that has been central throughout the entire project. At the same time, it is important to understand that this does not mean they will disappear from each other's space, because even after filming ends, they continue to appear together at events, shows, and special projects, and this has already been confirmed moving forward, as it has always been a natural part of their work dynamic, and their joint appearances consistently create strong attention and anticipation. One of the closest confirmed moments is set for March 24, 2026, when they will appear together at a special live event, where they are expected to interact, share moments, and simply be present together again outside of the series context. And this is important because it shows that even though one chapter is ending, their connection in the public space does not just disappear overnight. It continues in a different form. And this adds another layer to how today feels, because it is not a complete disappearance. It is not a sudden break, but rather a shift from one format to another, from being together inside a story to appearing together in real moments. And while that may seem like a small difference, in reality it changes everything about how their dynamic is experienced. Now, as the filming of the whole anthology comes to a close, a new phase begins, where each of them moves forward with their own projects, directions, and decisions. And while this is a natural step, it also brings uncertainty, because there is still no clear answer as to whether they will work together again in the same way, whether their paths will cross again in another project, or if this was truly the last time they went through an entire journey side by side from beginning to end. And perhaps the strongest thought in all of this is that we may have already seen their last scene together without even realizing it at the time, because moments like that never feel like endings. They feel like just another day on set, just another scene, and only later comes the understanding that it was the final point. At the same time, this does not feel like something negative, because there is still a sense of warmth, stability, and mutual understanding between them, something that comes with time and shared experience, and that is why this moment feels more like a transition than an ending, even though it still carries strong emotions. Now all that remains is to wait for the premiere, because that is when the final result will be revealed, when the full story will be seen as it was meant to be, and when it will become clear what feeling it leaves behind, because the ending always defines how the entire journey is remembered. But even now it is clear that today has become one of the most important moments in this entire story, because it marks the shift from filming to result, from working together to moving forward into something new, and that is why it feels so significant, because it holds both closure and uncertainty at the same time. And at the same time, it is impossible to ignore that this is not only the end of their part in the story, but the approaching end of the entire 4 Elements era, a project that has been unfolding piece by piece, with each part building toward a larger picture, and now that picture is almost complete, with the final stages already in motion and new chapters beginning to release one by one, starting with the next part coming out very soon, which makes this moment feel even more real, because while one part is ending behind the scenes, another is just about to begin in front of everyone, and that contrast between endings and beginnings makes everything feel even more intense. It creates this strange feeling where you are both saying goodbye to something that has already happened and at the same time getting ready to experience it for the first time on screen, knowing that what you are about to watch already has an ending that exists somewhere behind the scenes. And maybe that is why this moment feels so different, because it is not just about what is ending, but also about what is about to start, carrying all the weight of everything that came before it. And if you love this pair and are waiting for their new projects and for the release of this one, make sure to leave a comment and like this video so we can see how many people are still here who love them and are waiting for what comes next.